Yeah, I just started my live, so if anyone pops in, they can see what we're talking about here. But yeah, thank you, Chris, for giving me the opportunity to chat with you a little bit longer, for giving us the opportunity to learn a little bit more about Sofa, how you built it, and why you built it. So I'll just give a
Pleasure.
quick short explanation of the Zabal Games. Ultimately, we're doing a 3 month long build-a-thon, with the first month being workshops, the second month being an open build, and the third month being build in public with curated builders. So that curated builders part is actually a really interesting topic of conversation that we'll come back to here with Sofa. But today we're here to talk with Chris, who founded a Farcaster client focused on curation. And that's what led me here to these weekly meetings that Chris hosts. And yeah, I'll let Chris take it away, share a little bit about Sofa, share about your journey, your experience. I'll be listening in here and there, but yeah, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming in and sharing with us. And yeah, I'll just kick it over to you to take it away.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate it, man. So Sopha is a Farcaster client focused on the high signal stuff. That's the core of it. Normally it's long form, but really the core of it is the deep, interesting stuff. You know, the feed's ephemeral. It's like, you know, we all enjoy it and we go there and we're shit posting about whatever, and occasionally stuff pops up. But there's a load of really smart people thinking deeply about a load of stuff, and there's so much interesting stuff on Farcaster that we just miss. And so Farcaster is really, you know, that's the daily driver, whichever client you're going to use. Sopha's not looking to replace that. What Sopha is a kind of intentional third place, a coffee shop or a library or a cultural center that's there when you kind of want to sit down, want to focus a bit, and want to get into some of the really interesting stuff, which is kind of why we're hanging out with all these people here in the first place, right? Well, either that or in the hope of making gazillions of dollars from heaven. But yeah, you know, fundamentally, that's what makes Farcaster interesting, is the people on it, and this is kind of there to capture the deeper thoughts, the longer takes on it. It came about, I don't know, probably 7-8 months ago now, when when the Farcaster was going to shit in a meme coin. Like, it was just, you know, everything was about tokens, and like, I got no problem with tokens, but it was destroying the core experience that I was on Farcaster for, which was to hang out with really interesting thinkers and artists and builders and makers on the feed. And I kept kind of going like, if only someone would build a client focused on depth, and nobody did. And at some point I kind of went, maybe now that we've got really decent vibe coding, I might be the person in the room that needs to do this. And so it was kind of like and I've been, you know, chatting to friends and people on and around Farcaster, and it's kind of like, it sort of became a like, let's save Farcaster mission, almost from a kind of cultural perspective. And then obviously everything happened where January, February time, I can't quite remember where we were on time, but you know, Naynar took over, and suddenly Farcaster's like much more heading in the direction that I kind of was hoping for back in kind of November. And so that kind of, the kind of urgent mission to be my part of saving Farcaster felt kind of less important perhaps, but what's still absolutely at the heart of it is a bringing together of high signal people, high signal, I don't want to use the word content really, but fine, high signal writing, and high signal art, and that really, excuse me, is what this space is for. It's still emerging. There's still plenty of kind of space and scope for people to come into it. The kind of two core things we do, one is a community call once a week, and that's kind of very open, fluid conversation on the sofa about whatever's up around this tech-enabled future that we're all hanging out in, and kind of how we live well in that. And then the second part of it is the client, and that is at its core a curated feed of high signal writing our thoughts on Farcaster. It's curated by everyone in the Sopha community who has a curator role. That's very straightforward to get. Essentially, you just need to engage with me and leave me feeling like you're going to make a positive contribution, and you've got a taste and judgment that kind of fits in with the rest of us. And that's the core feed. Brad Q does a dedicated feed called the Pulse, and that's really the kind of key Farcaster moments, kind of the pulse of Farcaster, really, and that's the super easy way to.
I love it, Chris. I think there's so many pieces to tap in on, and in this kind of cozy corner of Farcaster, curating the feed even more becomes very valuable to one in how they kind of look at Farcaster, right? And see their front end. I would love for you to share a little bit more about like the culture that you're trying to drive here, as well as the benefit of other individuals coming in like you, seeing a problem, seeing a missing space, and coming in and saying, hey, I might not know exactly how to solve this, but here's an idea. I'm gonna try it out, customize the front end, then see how you can interact with this network from my angle, from my lens, and then other people coming in and doing that as well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on like how building a client has been very powerful as opposed to a different platform where you may not have been able to do the same thing.
Right, yeah, and that's the crazy cool thing about this is with all the open data that's on Farcaster, with the tooling that Naynar gives us, and now Hypersnap as well. And not that I've got too much into that, but there's basically two complete ecosystems looking to empower builders, and so it's super easy to create a way of seeing the information that's on the Farcaster feed, so we can all get super opinionated about it, and it's really just a way for us to bring whatever kind of culture and vibe we want to bring. My thing's kind of depth, intentionality, how we live well ultimately, and that's kind of what we're doing on the sofa with writers and artists and thinkers. But you know what 37 are up to with their whole kind of crazy aesthetic Windows machine from 2000 or whatever the look is. Totally different take, and I think there's loads of opportunity for us to get away from the conventional flat doom scrolling social feed, and we're super empowered to do that. And it's really just a question of getting your vibe coding platform of choice hooked up, grabbing an ANR account, and you can have something up and running and flying in very little time, really.
Yeah, it was actually pretty crazy how easy and modular the system was to play with. There was a day, I don't know exactly what caused my push towards it, but I was like, I'm going to build a client today, or I'm going to start. And by the end of the day or a couple hours of playing with it, I got it, not perfect, but it was actively posting to Farcaster from my website. And to me, that's a really cool win from someone who's not a traditional coder with very little technical experience, but to be able to spin something like that up that previously only a developer could do, or an individual with money to pay a developer could do.
Right.
And I think this leads to a lot more creative opportunities because we have artists, we have writers, we have creators of different kinds, um, all building their own custom tool.
Yeah, 100%. And then we've got this whole nested stack as well, right? You don't have to build an entire website. And like you say, we talk about a client, but really all we're talking about is a website that happens to show data from the Farcaster feed. But in a way, that's the biggest thing. And like the biggest undertaking is a few hours to get something meaningful. But then we've got mini apps, which are just little web apps basically that are even easier to do and will show up in the main clients, and then snaps, which you can just type in a thing that you want it to do. You can have something pretty cool within 30 seconds if you want.
Yeah, I think all of those different styles of media is very interesting. I think one of the things Farcaster offers that not a lot of other social media platforms offer is the fact that you can ultimately like build your own experience. You're not beholden to the algorithm. You kind of create your own algorithm, and I think that's one of the biggest challenges people have with social media today. So I would love to know the future of Sopha. Chris, where does your mind go? Where do you want to see Sopha a year from now? Never mind, maybe Farcaster also as a whole.
Yeah, so I mean, Farcaster itself is a wild, fascinating experiment. I would love us to keep growing the network of kind of fascinating people, obviously. But I kind of hope that we get a crazy, weird explosion of cool stuff going on that's actually compelling enough to bring people over here. And so they're not coming in the hope of making money. They're coming in because it's one of the most fun places to be online. So that's kind of the heart of my hope for it. In terms of what's happening with Sopha and the future of that, really what I'm building for is a bigger community of like-minded people who are interested in depth in how to live well, in all the things that this technology enables, and how we collectively come together in this scenius, to use the kind of word that was not coined by Adrian, but brought into our language here. And that's the underlying core. We got our second purple funding that's just been approved, which is going to help see Sopha through the next year. It supports us for the first 6 months to kind of get something up and running, and now the DAO's supporting it to build. There's a few experiments we're going to run, the biggest one of which is rewarding the curators. Everyone's doing it for the love at the moment, and I think we all kind of get plenty out of that, but I'm keen to start exploring how there is a value loop inside of this curation process, because I know a lot of people value the feed that the creators bring together, and how we can give something back in terms of some of that financial value. So bunch of that Sopha funding is going to go to some experiments in rewarding curators. It's not going to be anything major at all, but I think it never hurts. I think we saw that from kind of the leaderboard experiment, flawed as it was perhaps in lots of ways. It really did drive a lot of energy, even though people were maybe only getting a few bucks from it. It did change the dynamic. So going to explore that, see how we can build sustainability into the ecosystem. People who are valuing the other end, like sort of receiving it, where that might be recognized. Purple Prop's also going to pay for the infra, because obviously there's backhand costs to doing stuff at a reasonable bit of scale. So that's going to cover that, which is fab. And we are also going to do some experiments in kind of the cultural center space and thinking about, you know, what kind of workshops might it be fun to have, because I think one of the things that's cool about Sopha is the live experience, and actually getting on these kind of video calls and seeing each other and connecting. And I'm really curious about, you know, what would a Farcaster choir look like, or maybe we're doing online improv together, or life drawing, who knows. But yeah, to kind of, so anyone, and that is an open invitation, if you're a specialist at running online live experiences in some way, then that would be super cool to hear about from anyone listening to this. So those are kind of some of the major experiments, and tied into those kind of economic ones is definitely a conversation about the potential for a token, and what we might do with that and what that enables. But that's definitely not going to be anything we're rushing into. That's going to be thoughtfully designed. No big kind of speculative mechanics, just something that kind of feeds the ecosystem in a positive some way and doesn't really leave space for extraction. So that's the kind of that's the space we're exploring over the next 6 to 12 months, I think.
I love it, Chris. It's really cool to see that you created something in Farcaster, and the community helped fund that for the next year as well. So a entity within this Farcaster ecosystem is helping you move it forward. So thank you so much for creating Sopha, Chris. Thank you for sharing so many awesome things. Do you want to share where people can find you or find Sopha online?
Yeah, hell yeah. So Farcaster's the place to look it up. I'm at Chris Co-Created, and Sopha is at Sopha, spelt Sopha. So it's a PH instead of an F. And the website is sopha.social.
Amazing. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate
Total
your
pleasure.
time.